Hey y'all, this is Mo.
And I'm Joy.
We are lifelong friends who met in kindergarten and reconnected in Catholic school when we were 12. We are Christian women who enjoy travel, making art, cooking, baking, reading, and gardening. We do our very best to practice holistic health, and we love America. So pull up a chair and grab a hot tea, coffee, or chai latte and enjoy the show.
Today's job market is different from other times in history. Job seekers face a rapidly evolving workforce with changes in technology, generational attitudes, and even interfaces with AI. Our podcast will offer analysis, real-life examples, interviews, and discussions. We will explore solutions for the current workforce that is impacted by layoffs or just wanting to make a change. And we'll do it while having a laugh or two. Welcome to Real Talk for Today's Job Seekers podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Talk for Today's Job Seekers podcast. I am Joy.
And I'm Mo.
And we would appreciate it if you'd like, share, subscribe, and join us on social media. We are currently on Facebook and Telegram. Those details are in the show notes. But before we get started today, last week we talked about some layoffs and we got some feedback from one of our listeners that I thought might be valuable to share. This is from Morgan, who writes, thinking about back to my own job-related history, I remember when I got laid off from a telecommunications company. The first thing that I thought about was humiliation. The perception of friends and family that I may be a lazy worker and that the company wanted to get rid of me was something that I thought people would immediately consider when I mentioned that I was getting laid off.
Yeah.
The older generations don't realize that companies are less loyal to their employees than it used to be 30 to 40 years ago. And I really resonated with that, Mo.
Yes.
But this next portion that Morgan shared with us was very eye-opening.
For real.
He said, I did something at the layoff that I'm unsure that a lot of people can do or think to do, but I pushed back on my severance. I fought and I won, stating that my compensation was not adequate based on the criteria, years of service, vacation time unused, etc. And I asked for more. They came back and for more than doubled my severance payout. And I just thought that was fascinating. Have you ever heard of somebody pushing back and getting better severance, Mo?
Honestly, no. I have thought about this so many times since we heard about this. We talked about a couple episodes back, right, on our own experiences with layoffs. Me personally, I have never heard of someone doing this. And I do agree. It is fascinating and good for them.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Morgan, for leaving that feedback. And you guys, if you want to join us again on our Telegram or our Facebook, we would love to hear your experiences and just continue to learn from each other.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's discussion. Let's talk about networking, and there are many components to that. And I'm just going to go ahead and disclaim really quick, I may cough every now and again, trying to beat that thing, but just, we're going to go with it. All right, so networking involves all types of things, but it's, to me, and Joy, I'm sure you would agree, it's probably one of the most critical aspects that you have, right? So, excuse me, let's start with the people that you know. Current relationships. We all have tons of people that we know and a wide variety, right? It's not just your work relationships. You've got personal, social, all kinds of different things. So I think all of us kind of start with, all right, who do we know? where are they located, and who should we talk to as we start to maybe explore options. So most people logically start with their former colleagues. That's usually the first place you go if you've experienced a layoff, and you think about, who do I know? Who did I work with? Are they somewhere else, and can they help? Joy, tell us a little bit about your former colleagues.
Well, I'm not going to say that I burned my bridges, but I left that position and I've never looked back. I've never wanted to look back.
Yep.
Coworkers had filtered out of my group before I left, so I don't have a relationship with a lot of them. People that said that they were pals have just disappeared and never spoken again.
Oh.
How many jobs would you say that you've gotten that you didn't know somebody in the business or the division that could give you a hand up?
For me, I really only have 2 roles that I can think of where I didn't really know anyone or the division. So the first one was a contract role, and the second one was something that I joined with my husband, actually, a smaller company. And yeah, my experience with coworkers is a little bit different. My first role, I was at the company for 18 years. I still have very close relationships with especially a particular group. Shout out to the coworkers, y'all know who y'all are. But we have actually just stayed really close. Some of them have moved away, one to another state actually, and while we don't get to always see each other, we do make it a point to still gather from time to time, and we still have like a text chat. I'm also very, very close with my husband's coworkers to a large degree, so we're also very close. Not that I would utilize them for a job, so to speak, but the relationships, in some ways, I would say all of these people are like pseudo family to me.
Absolutely.
We've experienced life together, and it's funny when I wrote my goodbye letter, the famous goodbye letter, after the 18-year stint, I actually named those people and talked about how much life we had done together. A lot of us, we had babies together, grandchildren, deaths, funerals, traveled, the whole thing, and they're special.
Yeah. So for me, I guess I've only received one job of my own merit. The rest I've known somebody or got carried along to the next business or something. But it's interesting to look back and think about, how you got your jobs and who you knew and who pulled you along and who pulled you up and all these different places. What about like recruiters? So I've had limited exposure to recruiters. I seem to be leery of them or think that it's a scam when they reach out.
Yeah.
That all you need to do is buy this and we'll return the money to you or whatever it is. But you've had much better luck and developed some great long-term relationships with a couple of your recruiters, right, Mo?
Yeah, I've definitely been very fortunate. I have one long-term contact that has just been an excellent relationship. As a matter of fact, we've been talking a lot more recently, but even when I was working, I would try, to reach out from time to time. Shout out to Matt. He's just been, very helpful, and I've had a lot of insight just, across the board from him over the years, and sometimes it's given me a lot of calm in the storm a little bit, because I get to hear a different perspective and, kind of get a feel for what he's seen and all of that, and it kind of gives me a little bit of just grounding. I have a newer contact that seems kind of promising that was connected to me from someone that I've known for many years in my industry. But I would say, though, that more recently, Joy, I can understand why you feel the way that you do. Because, especially since I decided to test out the banner, which I will say my gut feeling, me personally, I know a lot of people like to use it. So this is personal preference, not a recommendation. But I just decided to personally test out adding the open to work banner on my LinkedIn profile picture. And I have not really been pleased with what I have noticed. The people that immediately started reaching out to me just hasn't been very promising. So I'm actually going to remove that. And it kind of resembles your leeriness.
Right.
I would say that, right? Yeah.
And just suspect.
Mm-hmm.
What about like temp agencies? Have you ever worked for or had any experience with temp agencies, Mo?
Honestly, I remember dealing with one temp agency at the very beginning of my career. It's like a vague, distant memory. I remember going there, it being like this crampy office. I was super young, and you had to take like those weird like basic aptitude test or whatever.
Oh, right.
Can you add, can you spell, how fast can you type? But outside of that, honestly, I have not had the experience, but I think you've had a little bit more experience. Isn't that right?
I have. I've actually had some good luck with temp agencies.
All right.
I'll get called back to continue to do the work and have, of course, been given offers to go permanent several times.
Oh.
But timing or other opportunities have precluded me from going that route completely. But I think that if you get in the business, they get to know you, they get used to you, and if you're a good worker and you show up on time and you do what you say you're going to do, and making eye contact, that actually goes a long way today.
It really does.
And I was just talking with my sister-in-law as well, and she 2 times has had a complete career change with skilled positions through temp agencies.
Really?
She didn't go in to do whatever particular job, but she worked through the temp agency. She showed up daily, put herself out there and pursued it, and has had 2 very good careers as a result of it. So
I didn't realize that.
yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. The other place to network that I just want to bring up is people that you don't know. I've been joining random groups. There's a tech meetup that I went to.
Okay.
And they have it in a restaurant or in a bar, and there's 50 to 100 people that'll show up, and that has not worked well for me because I am a severe introvert. I did not do well in the environment, and I just wanted to leave and hid in a corner most of the time and made myself stay the hour, but wouldn't make eye contact, and just, like I say, I hid most of the time.
Well, wait, let me ask you a little bit about that.
Sure.
So obviously I've known you forever. First of all, I say I commend you for actually going and showing up. I think you're much better at that. Even though I tend to be, I think, more social than you, you do a much better job finding things and getting out there. So if you didn't talk to anyone, what's kind of your feedback?
I should bring you as my wingman. That's what I should do.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I will be your wingman.
Okay.
But, when you went, what were you hoping to get out of that?
I was hoping to meet people and somebody find me and find the jewel that I was and offer me a job on the spot with a great salary. And okay, wait, I'm dreaming.
Okay, so A, you're definitely a jewel, but we've got to like talk to the people. So
Right.
you know what?
That's why I haven't dated for so long too.
Well, we
Oh
definitely
wait, shush. We're not talking about dating here.
we definitely didn't actually plan to talk about this, but I think we need to pause here for a minute, and I think you need to let me know when the next one is, and we need to have the goal that you're going to actually introduce yourself to 3 different people.
Oh gosh.
You've got to like talk to the people.
Right. I showed up. That wasn't enough, was it?
It was a good first step, but we need to go and you need to meet at least the 3 people and make the connections, right?
Well, and that's what I've heard. Like, if you want to be a person that goes to the gym, you know, at least drive to the gym and sit in the parking lot. If you can't drive to the gym and go inside and do the thing, just ease into it. And I guess I've eased into the tech meetings, and I went, but now I need to execute. And you're exactly right.
Okay, so wait a minute, real quick. How many have you been to the meetings?
2.
And how many people have you met?
I did meet one gentleman.
Okay, good.
Yes, and he talked about himself the whole time, and that annoyed me. And
Okay, well, let me know when the next one is, and we need to make a note to talk about the experience in an upcoming podcast.
yes.
Okay, agreed?
Yes, I'll
All
stretch
right,
myself.
I'm holding her accountable.
But just to continue, I've had a little bit better luck with word of mouth opportunities by joining social groups,
Okay.
like a political or classes learning about history or cooking classes or whatever. I've met several people in those smaller environments, been able to talk about the job search, been able to meet a couple of people that way.
Good.
So I guess for me and all the other introverts out there, I would maybe recommend doing smaller groups and just putting yourself out there a little bit further to meet other people and maybe get to network that way.
Excellent advice.
So we'll move on in the conversation and start talking about social media. We've already talked a little bit about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I want to put my disclaimer out there. I'll preface it by saying that I am part of the anti-social media group.
Yeah.
I grew up in the age of modem noises and chat rooms. And I know how much of an influence that was on me growing up. But I've just decided for me that it's not good for my brain, and I've just set myself up not to live in that world.
Yeah.
I've actually loved it when I had a corporate phone because we weren't allowed to have the apps and do the things because it was against the security policy. And years without it, I've just carried through on that. Mo, did you have a corporate device?
Yes. First of all, I just want to say when I heard you talking about the modem noises and the chat rooms, my mind actually immediately went back because, believe it or not, listeners, we were not born with the internet already in place. I remember being distinctly suspicious of it for quite a while when it came out. Back to the question, I remember way back when getting a BlackBerry assigned to me at work.
Oh, I love Blackberries.
And I was like, what in the world? Like, it's funny. Like, you're obviously the more techie person of our team. I'm not. I might be a little bit more social, but I also enjoy my quiet as well. You'll get yourself out there a little bit more, even though you're the introvert. But for me, I was just such a late adopter. And I think I still tend to be in some ways a little bit of a late adopter to technologies. I was a good bit older than most when I actually got a cell phone. And so when I got the BlackBerry, for me, it was kind of like, oh no, I'm always needing to be available to work. That was my initial
Right.
concern. But then I got used to it, and I was fine, and it actually wound up being a great tool for me, and I was happy with it. I would say most recently, actually in the last year, I found myself in a situation where my work asked me to get my own laptop that I would work from. And so it felt to me like, oh, my personal laptop would also be work. I did not love that. It felt uncomfortable. And I would say, in general, I absolutely agree with you. I like the idea of keeping my work stuff and my personal stuff completely separate.
Absolutely.
That's important to me.
Absolutely. So, with regards to the LinkedIn, just to circle back to that,
Yeah.
I also might have blown up my chances to have a LinkedIn account around the time of the pandemic. I deleted my LinkedIn and wrote a scathing, shame-filled letter to somebody that probably never even read it or cared. But I was angry because of the unjust censorship
Okay.
that LinkedIn was practicing. So, Mo, do you still have a LinkedIn account?
Yes, I actually do. And when you said that, it took me way back. I don't even remember how long I've had my LinkedIn account, but I specifically remember getting pressured to open a LinkedIn account by a good friend of mine. I'm just going to name drop and say Jeff made me do it.
Good job, Jeff.
It's his fault that I got the initial LinkedIn account. I've only had the one, and I started out with just a shell. And I think for the first several years, I do feel that there was some value, and it felt helpful. Honestly, for me now, and it could just be years have gone by and I'm older and I have different perspectives. Who knows? It could be a wide variety of things. But to me, the value is having all of my contacts in one central place.
Oh, right. Okay.
And having the ability to message them, like if we've lost touch, right? I haven't talked to Fred in 8 years, but I need a job, and we were friendly or had a good working relationship, and I can send him a LinkedIn message. I find that very, very helpful. I'm not convinced, at least not right now, and it could be for, again, a wide variety of reasons, but I personally have not been able to necessarily land a job as I have been searching. And I'm not sure if I said it earlier or not, but as of today, and I've done a lot of this mainly through LinkedIn, not 100%, but I would say the majority. I have actually, since December, applied for 53 jobs and talked to 89 different people. Some that I knew in my past, some that were brand new that either I found just because of the company they worked at and I wanted to connect with them, or because a friend told me you need to connect with this person.
Yeah, everybody is telling me that I need to be on LinkedIn. Yet, no one that I know is finding anything on there. And it just seems like they're spinning and toiling and just not getting anywhere
Yeah,
with it.
I agree with that. That is how I have felt. I have felt like I have spun. I have applied for jobs. I get ghosted. I've actually only had, from those stats I just said a few moments ago, I've only had 3 interview requests. I've landed 0 roles. Again, full disclaimer, there's a wide variety of reasons. The timing, the economy, companies kind of holding back, lots of different layoffs across the board in all kinds of industries. There's definitely value. However, if my personal opinion is LinkedIn just feels in some ways like another quote unquote, I'm doing my air quote fingers, social media space. And sometimes I feel like, it's not necessarily as helpful as it might once have been.
Yeah.
Not hating on LinkedIn, because there's definitely value. It could just be the experiences that we've had, right?
Yeah. What about like Facebook, Instagram, X, or any of these other ones? For me, I've recently rejoined Facebook and Instagram to promote this podcast and to have a place for us to connect with our listeners.
Okay.
We also opened a Telegram, thinking that those are kind of the best, broadest places to reach our audience, right?
Yep.
But one's going to fall out of favor. The other ones are going to start kicking up censorship. They all track and advertise to us way too much.
For real.
And it just feels like the internet is an increasingly unpleasant space to be in. And I don't know if that's just me because I resist social media, but every time I don't want to say that I feel dirty every time I go on there, but I leave being aggravated or annoyed, or I don't get the information that I went looking for, and I get squirreled out of it just looking at t-shirts or whatever it is. What about you and the social medias as far as the networking and stuff like that? What's your experience been with those?
Well, I would say there's two parts to that. So I feel like I agree. And again, you and I, me personally, I feel like we are blessed to have grown up, without the internet, without
Amen.
computers, without a cell phone.
Yeah.
I still very much value what I call my freedom, which is why I was such a late adopter to even getting a cell phone. So I remember when I was in high school, right? Beepers were the jam. Everybody had a beeper, I think, except for me. But I really just didn't want one. My response was always, I don't want to be found.
Right.
I liked, my freedom. I think I was, golly, I was in my late 20s, very late 20s before I got a cell phone. I got a cell phone when my dad got sick and I needed to be found, right? But I will just, I'm memory lane for a moment. It was a Nokia. Gosh, no one can see what I'm doing, but it was like the smallest thing ever. And all it had was a keyboard and a teeny, teeny, tiny screen. And all you could do was make a phone call and text. Oh my gosh, Joy, I think I had to replace it once. I held on to that thing until the phone companies were laughing at me. Like, this thing can't even be serviced. But, it did what I wanted it to do, right? So when I think back, when I think about social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, I think at some point, I have no clue how old we were. MySpace. Like, that's the first thing that I remember with social media.
Right.
I never did any of that stuff. I thought that was so weird and so creepy. I was a very late adopter to Facebook. I actually initially joined Facebook because my husband's high school reunion or something, and then it became really cool, to connect with our Blue family. And so I have maintained my Facebook across the board. I go through phases where I don't want to be as engaged. From a job perspective, I will tell you that it has allowed me to reach out to a couple of contacts using Messenger that I had kind of lost touch with. We were quote unquote friends on Facebook, but maybe we hadn't talked in some time. That has actually been kind of helpful for me a couple of times. I do have Instagram. Again, I joined Instagram because there were a couple of people, younger people that were close to me, went off to college, and the only social media they had was Instagram. So I wanted to keep up with them, and I'm still kind of dark. I have like a weird profile picture, and now it's expanded a little bit more. I have my son on there and some of his people, and I enjoy that. But you know, the thing about Instagram, Joy, we have, you know, our Moe's Micro Bakery and your mind mouth motion and those types of things. So from a hey, let's do a little bit of work, let's connect with audiences. For me personally, I really enjoy Instagram, and I've learned to use it better. And you know, I really like that. X, I can't really say much about that. I did have a Twitter account, which is obviously now X. I still haven't gotten used to that, but I joined that initially for my son and to help him with some of his sports stuff. I don't honestly really use it anymore.
Right.
Telegram, I do have and I do use. That is where I get my news. And I also had used it for a while for some other things. So for me, I find that helpful. But again, like you said, you have to be careful, because every now and again I get these strangers that want to private message me on Telegram or whatever. Listen, if I don't know you, I'd like to possibly meet you, but don't just randomly reach out, because I am going to delete and block.
Right.
Sorry, but that's just how it goes.
Safety first.
Yes, 100%.
Even on the internet.
Especially on the internet. So, let's see. We've talked about our networking, the people we know, social media, people that we might not know. The last place for me, Joy, that I have really utilized in my job search has been company websites.
Oh.
One of the things that I got told probably like 2.5 months into my recent job search was, don't always just apply for jobs through LinkedIn. Go out to the company website and look for the job and directly apply through them. That advice has stuck with me, and I will tell you that I try to do that more times than not. Sometimes I see a job on LinkedIn and I don't see it on the company website, and I do test it out and I'll apply for it. But there are a lot of jobs. How many did I say I've applied for? 53.
50 something, yeah.
I've applied for on LinkedIn, and I've never heard like a peep. I've had lots of people that I know express a couple of concerns. I liked that advice, and I will throw it out there, but whenever I can, I use the company website.
Do you only engage with the companies if they have a job posting listed on their site or on LinkedIn? Have you ever blind sent a resume out?
Honestly,
I've done it in the past. But
only if
don't
I
know
have
it's
like the
acceptable these
name
days.
of someone at the company. So let's see, I guess the right answer to that question is, if there's a company that I'm interested in, I will utilize LinkedIn, which I think it's very helpful for. And you can go to the company on LinkedIn, and they'll kind of have like a couple of tabs. It'll have like, you know, about, and it'll have like jobs, and then it'll have people. So I have found that really helpful to click on the people tab, and it'll bring up people if they allow themselves, you know, to be listed as such. And I love the fact that LinkedIn will, you can either be like a first, second, or third connection, like removed. So sometimes you can kind of, oh, I know so-and-so who knows them. Maybe they can, you know, introduce us, so to speak. But there have been a couple of times where I didn't know anyone at a company that I was interested in. So I would try to go out and find people that are listed in their HR. And I will send them my resume and try to connect with them and say, hey, I'm very interested in your company. This is what I do. are you looking for anyone with that skill set? I would love to connect. Sometimes I hear back from people and sometimes I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of all the connection stuff that you could do within there, and the first removed and the third removed, and
Yeah,
all
that's
that.
super helpful. There's definitely a lot of benefit to LinkedIn, for sure.
Back in the day, yes, I used to send blind resumes because, hey, this is a really cool company. It looks interesting. I don't know that I've ever landed a position that way, but I felt like I
Agreed.
was doing something.
Yes.
And I felt like I was taking it in my own hands. And again, maybe they'll see what a jewel they can get
Of course, I feel
just by
that.
reaching out or whatever. But yeah,
You know, that reminds me though of something, Joy. And think about it, with who we are and our age, we grew up in an era where we would go in person to
Right.
fill out an application.
and we would have a paper resume.
Correct. So I think that also kind of speaks to your age and where you're at and stuff, because we may be more apt to do something that would feel completely foreign
To
to
today's-
people's experiences today, right? Because
Absolutely.
I mean, I will say my son has popped into a couple of places and actually applied for a couple of different things. But in general, most people want you to do everything online.
Word. So today was a great episode, and I enjoyed talking to you about it. But we have
Same.
got a lot going on for our next episode. We are going to be talking more about LinkedIn.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about resumes and,
Oh boy.
you know, do you have one size fits all resume or do you tailor it to each company? And then finally, is AI ever going to allow us to interview again? Or is everything going to be kicked back? And that kind of backs up to what you were just talking about there.
Yeah.
People don't want to see you in person. They want to let the bots and they want to let
The damn bots.
the other things take the decision making out of their hands. And
Yeah.
no, you need to see me face to face, and we need to look each other in the eye.
Yes.
We need to figure some things out. But I am really looking forward to that discussion next week. So, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Talk for Today's Job Seekers podcast with Mo and Joy. If you'd like to advertise and connect with our amazing audience across the country, please feel free to reach out to us at realtalkfortodaysjobseekers@gmail.com. And we would love to hear your ideas. If you've got any topic suggestions, please join us on Facebook, Telegram, or the email I just listed. And check out our show notes for details.
Yes.
We look forward to hearing from you next time.
Absolutely.
Toodles!
See ya.